Hello and welcome to Runkle of the Bailey. My name is Ian Runkle. I'm a Canadian criminal defense and firearms lawyer. Today I want to talk about an issue that is really important. It goes to fundamental freedoms to access information on the internet. And I never thought I'd be saying this, but this is actually an issue where the Liberal Party has it right, and the Conservatives, the NDP, and the Bloc have it wrong. So this is Bill S-210, and this one is titled an act to restrict young persons' online access to sexually explicit material. This one is being billed as a law to prevent children from having access to porn. However, what this is a massive invasion in terms of internet surveillance, as well as restriction of what you can and can't see online. So let's start with the position, and I'm not saying this is my position, I'm just saying, for the sake of argument, let's assume that porn is terrible and you hate it and you don't want it anywhere online. Well, you should still oppose this bill, and I'm going to explain why. So, this bill, it starts out and it sort of goes with these lofty goals. We want to prevent kids from having access to porn online. I think we can all agree with that notion. We may disagree as to where that should come in. I personally feel that that is really the responsibility of parents and that government makes a poor parent. But it says in the preamble, whereas sexually explicit material, including demeaning material and material depicting sexual violence, can be easily accessed on the internet by young persons. So you can already see, now the preamble isn't really part of the law. It can be used to interpret the law, but it's not actually part of it. But you can see that they're really trying to sort of amp up the fear of this and so forth. And they're noting, whereas a significant proportion of the sexually explicit material accessed online is made available on the internet for commercial purposes, in particular through pornographic websites, and is not protected by any effective age verification method. And this is really getting to what they're looking at here. They're looking at forcing an age verification method onto everything. And so there's some definitions, and I always say that when we're looking at a law, it's important to look at the definitions of it. So internet service provider means a person, and person will include a company, a corporation, who provides internet access, internet content hosting, or electronic mail. Now, provides internet access may actually apply to more people than you think. If you're running a small coffee shop and you offer Wi-Fi, you might be an internet service provider under this rule. Making available includes transmitting, distributing, or selling. Distributing is very broad, right? Just, any making available is going to be covered here. And sexually explicit material means any material as defined under subsection 171.1 sub 1 of the Criminal Code. Now I should note, that's actually an anti-grooming provision. That's something that says that you can't provide porn to children for the purposes of making them more inclined to, or more amenable or less resistant to any sort of sexual contact. So this is actually fairly broadly defined in the Criminal Code, because the Criminal Code puts restrictions on it about how it's actually being used, what it's being used for. Okay, so purpose. The purpose of this act is to protect public health and public safety, and in particular, to protect the mental health of young persons by restricting their access to sexually explicit material. It's not just going to restrict access by young people. It's also going to restrict access by everyone else. We'll talk about that. Protect Canadians, in particular young persons and women, from the harmful effects of the exposure of young persons to sexually explicit material, including demeaning material and material depicting sexual violence, and deter organizations that make sexually explicit material available on the internet for commercial purposes from allowing young persons to access that material. Okay, so it creates an offense here of making sexually explicit material available to a young person, with a fine of $250,000 for a first offense, and $500,000 for any subsequent offense. Now, that's anything for commercial purposes, but commercial purposes is potentially something that's going to be interpreted very broadly. A site that has advertisements may be covered here. Now, The defense here is age verification. So places that have this material can protect themselves via age verification. It says it's not a defense to a charge under Section 5 that the organization believed that the young person referred to in that section was at least 18 years of age, unless the organization implemented a prescribed, i.e., it has to be approved by the government. The government gets to pick and choose how these age verification systems work. They can say this one is okay, this one is not okay. And that gives them tremendous power here. So implemented a prescribed age verification method to limit access to the sexually explicit material made available for commercial purposes to individuals who are at least 18 years of age. Now keep in mind, most internet web pages don't know who you are, so they don't know how old you are. Okay. There's also some defenses here as to, if it's involving science, medicine, education, or the arts, and also if you have been following a non-compliance notice. Now, these non-compliance notices should scare the heck out of you, and I'm going to explain why. So, what these notices are is that if they think that you are making content available, then they can send you this notice, and it requires that within 20 days after it's issued that you take certain steps. And if that organization fails to take those steps, then the enforcement authority may apply to the federal court for an order requiring internet service providers to prevent access to the material to young persons on the internet in Canada, which means that they are creating the architecture for the government to be able to declare any web page out there that they don't like to be blocked. This is the same method, by the way, that is used in the Great Firewall of China. When we're talking about, China, we don't think of them as a bastion of internet liberty, but the government here, or at least this is a liberal senator, although the Liberal Party is opposing this bill, kind of a weird mix, but this is bringing Chinese-style internet censorship into Canada to make this happen. And if you think it's going to stop at porn, you're crazy, because the government never stops with that. They're going to expand this expect to see this for misinformation, expect to see this for all sorts of things. And do you want the government to be deciding what is misinformation and so forth? So, yeah, they can require sites to be blocked by internet service providers, which is crazy, right? To have internet service providers blocking internet sites. And you might be saying, oh, I don't care if they block, whichever porn site. Well, keep in mind that pages that include content that will be captured by this include Reddit and Twitter and quite likely YouTube, all sorts of places. Just about anything that allows for user-generated content may run afoul of this. And that creates some really scary thoughts, because the government gets to pick and choose which ones they go after. So they may, for instance, decide, well, we don't like this one site because they also have political views that we don't like. The potential to use this to suppress speech is incredible. This is just a terrible, terrible bill. But, so you're saying, well, it's not going to be a big deal. They'll just have to put in age verification. The problem is, what does that mean? Now, they've specified that before they decide what a prescribed age verification method is, they must consider whether, first, it's reliable. And I can tell you they're not. Anything that they set up will be worked around. B, maintains user privacy and protects user personal information. I can guarantee you that this will end up being violated. There will be leaks that release names of who accessed what sites. This is virtually guaranteed. Collects and uses personal information solely for age verification purposes, except to the extent required by law. They never actually do that. destroys any personal information collected for age verification purposes once the verification is completed. Again, you're going to see instances where they're like, oh yeah, we were supposed to be destroying that, but we were actually saving it because it's great to sell to advertisers. And whoops, our bad, some hacker leaked it on the internet. And now people can tell which subreddits you were looking at and so forth. And generally complies with the best practices in the fields of age verification and privacy protection. Now, what this means is that there's going to end up having to be a sweeping architecture of methods to verify your age. And in order to verify your age, in order for you to access the internet, the first thing that they have to verify is who you are. So what this means essentially is that they want to create a system where what you read and what you look at on incredibly popular web pages is going to be tracked. And that should be terrifying. This is a real attack on sort of the freedom to just access information on the internet. And again, even if you hate porn, you should hate this law because it doesn't just affect people who check that out. It affects everybody who reads sites like Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it. I still prefer Twitter or Reddit or anything else. Particularly, this will affect sites that have user-generated content. All of that stuff that isn't really controlled by legacy media or big corporate entities or whatever else. I mean, Reddit themselves is a big corporation, but the content on Reddit is from users. We may see a lot of internet web pages just deciding to block Canadians entirely. Because if you're Reddit, you might say, you know what? This is way too much hassle. Block Canada. The freedom of speech or freedom of expression implications on this are huge, and there's a reason why a lot of lawyers, myself included, are saying that it's dubious as to whether this is constitutional. I personally think that there's several ways where this is unconstitutional, but we'll see. I'm hoping that some of these parties turn around, so you might want to call your local politician and say, hey, what are you doing? Because this is worth opposing. I'm certainly going to be calling up my local politicians as well as, normally I've been saying, hey, the Conservative Party seems to be the better choice. I don't like political parties, and this illustrates why. People ask me, why don't you go into politics? And this is a great illustration why. If the party said, vote for this, or we'll kick you out, I'd say bye, because there is no way I can vote for this. Doesn't matter what the party says, and that prevents you from getting into politics. But I'm hoping that these parties will see just how authoritarian what they're supporting is here, and maybe see some sense. I certainly will be calling them up and trying to have a chat with them about this and about what it might mean. So anyway, thank you for watching. I really encourage you to call your local politician, especially if you're in an area that is NDP, Bloc, Conservative. Those are the parties that are supporting this, and just tell them this is a bad bill. You should not support it. Stop this now while you still can. Anyway, thank you for watching. I hope you found this to be interesting or educational. I'm going to put a link to the bill itself in the description below so you can check it out. Check my work. You can read it over and see if you agree with me. But, yeah. I also want to thank my Patreon supporters at the $50 level, Lembas for the Elf, CCFR, and Canada's National Firearms Association, as well as the Canadian Shooting Sports Association. And at the $20 level, Lindsay Metcalf, Larry Kalniak, Kyle Fox, Drunk All of the Baileys, Cameron Johnson, Andrew Elsich, Vicky, and Dorky Dane. Thank you as well to my $10 supporters who will be in the crawl immediately following. Thank you for watching. Hope this has armed you with knowledge. See you next time.